Center of Influence class. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming to our Center of Influence class. This is about business relationships, the key to building them and keeping you top of mind. Here we have Brittany, who's our sponsor, who's going to come speak to us today. Take the floor.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Sikorsky, the marketing rep for Magnus Title MTA. So my job is to help real estate agents.
We can't hear you.
You can't? Oh, I'm on the mic. I have my audio on. You can't hear me?
Sorry, Brittany. We're not able to make it work on this side.
That's okay.
And thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, so thank you so much for coming to our class. So I'm excited to teach you guys about Center of Influence. One of the main reasons was I took this class from Chuck and Angela 8 years ago, and my income doubled that year. So the year I took this class, and I've never really gone back. So I actually have been working really hard on my Center of Influence since November, even harder. I just had decided to make I read a bunch of books and got really motivated to go for it. And I've been able to put $6 million worth of deals under contract this year, even with coronavirus. So this works. And I would say 95% of my deals came from this. So it seems like everybody would do this because it's a very natural thing. But if you will start this now and just be consistent, it will change your career. The objectives. So why is this concept so important? How to identify business relationships are important and build them to grow. How to grow them. I mean, you have to work. Once you create your database, you have to work your database. How often to contact them, and how to add to your list, because when you have a database, it has to be a constantly evolving database. And where do you store the database? 19% of buyers want to connect with a salesperson. 19% of buyers want to connect with a salesperson during the awareness stage. That's when they're very first learning about the product, learning about houses, and going out there shopping. 60% want to connect with a salesperson during the consideration stage. And that's when they're researching and coming up with the options, coming up with a short list. 20% want to talk during the decision stage, which is once they've already decided to buy a product, which I always think is so funny. People spend all this time trying to figure it out on their own, and then they call us when they find a house to write a contract. But it does happen. That's kind of the easy way. It takes an average of 18 calls with a buyer to actually connect. 84% of buyers kick off their buying process with a referral. 92% of buyers trust referrals from people that they know. So when you get a contact that comes from your Center of Influence, it's extremely different because they already trust you to a very different degree. This is the funny part. After a positive experience, 83% of the people say that they would refer out their agent. But salespeople just don't ask. So they say only 29% of customers end up giving a referral out of just not being asked. So why is this concept so important? You need to build relationships and keep in contact with your clients. And it's not going to happen on accident. First, make a list of everyone that you know. Don't write them down unless you have the ability to collect their phone number and address, or you can get it. Use a memory jogger. I have some memory joggers printed here that I will hand out, and it is an accountant, the guy who does your lawn, restaurants that you go to, massage therapists, dentists, banking. I meet a lot of newer agents, and they're like, gosh, I just don't really have anybody to put in your database. But if you will go through that list, you definitely have people to put in your database and get started. Should they be in my center of influence? That is one concept that you want to always keep thinking about as you're working with it. You need to speak with each one of these people and ask them some questions. Do you have somebody that you would refer to or use for buying and selling? Or if you are looking to buy and sell, who would you use to help? If not me, would you consider using me? If you do, if they already have somebody that's their plan A, ask if you can be their plan B. You would be surprised how many agents leave the industry over years. And if you put them in as your plan B, as soon as that person's gone and you've been communicating with them all this time, they can move right up to the A portion of your list. If you've never called before and you're not sure what to do, here is a good script just to start working with. Hello, I'm Georgie. I don't know if I've told you, but I'm buying and selling houses now. If you were looking to buy or sell, would you use me? I want to keep in contact with you in a meaningful way so that if you come across someone that needs to buy or sell a house, you'll give them my name and number. Now, if they say yes, or at least kind of said yes, didn't say no, there's a lot of information for you to collect from them. Their names, husbands' names, wives, kids, pets, phone numbers. If they can't give you their phone number, they absolutely can't be on your A list. Email address, mailing address. I mail my clients paperwork as well. Social media information. Try to friend them on Facebook. To there later how useful that can be, because we're often looking for reasons to communicate with them, and Facebook can give us a lot of reasons. They have a new dog, they had a new baby. Birthdays, I think birthdays are the most important. I'll get into it later. I think that is probably the number one thing that has made me as busy as I am, is calling all my friends and clients on their birthday. So then go to your calendar after you collect this information and put in reoccurring reminders for birthdays and anniversaries. I don't do wedding anniversaries. I know a lot of people that do. I do the anniversary of when they bought their house. Feels more natural for me. So how to group them. So this is a very important part, because in the beginning when I had a database, I just threw people in there and it wasn't organized. So if you do this in the very beginning, it's very helpful. So A's are people that telling you they will use you or will refer somebody to use you now. So those are the people you want put in your A's. The B's are people that say they will put you as their plan B. Those are people that you can put in your B list. So one of the hard things is a lot of people start a database, but then they never really communicate, or they don't work that database. So how often should you contact them? You should be, now this is calling your A's. So I believe you should contact your A's 12 times a year. I call them twice a year. I call every A on their birthday, and I call every A one other time during the year and invite them to coffee or to have lunch or something. And that practice has made me very successful. It's been probably one of the most successful tools I've had, is also reaching out to them that other time of year to have some personal time. Then your B's, you should be reaching out to your B's 6 to 9 times a year, calling them at least once or twice. I do call everybody I know on their birthday. That's a great minimum practice to get in the habit of. If you're not able to reach these groups on the phone, you can leave them a message. Goals when you're contacting your center of influence. So remember, this center of influence has a super important reason, and this is the number one reason. You are building a relationship. I joke, me and my daughter, I have a team, we joke that we're actually much better friends now that we actively manage a database, because we're way more thoughtful to our friends. We build relationships. We're very conscious about thanking people and encouraging them and sending them things when they have things go on in their life. You build a relationship with them, and it will build their confidence in you over time. Condition them to use you or refer you. Condition them to consider you a valuable resource. So one of the ways I make my clients consider me a valuable resource is I have worked for years to collect as many good workers as I can. And they work on a lot of the houses that are being remodeled. I have them work on my own house. And you see what type of work they do, and you collect references from people. One of the best things you can do to further your career is come up with an amazing list of workers and just let everybody know. I'm the person you call when anything breaks in your house and you want a good window guy, you want a good AC guy, call me. So I think that's probably one of the number two things that I've ever done that makes my phone ring a lot. I get at least 2 or 3 calls a week, sometimes a call a day from a past client that wants a vendor. So that's just awesome to get them to call you. So phone calls. I know I have somebody on my team who hates making phone calls. The average person doesn't really love phone calls. I just tell you, just make them. You know how they say they can't eat you? I mean, I know I think, oh gosh, I'm going to sound stupid, or I don't know what to say. Just get on the phone. It's so much easier than you think, and it's just a discipline. Mark down how many hours a day in your phone you're going to, how many hours a day in your calendar you're going to spend on the phone. And once you force yourself to that, it'll get so much easier over time. I think birthdays by far are the number one most useful call. I called one of my good friends on a birthday. It was kind of a crazy day. I didn't get around to calling till about 5 p.m. She told me it was she's a 55-year-old mom. I was the first person to tell her happy birthday besides her husband and kids. And she was super encouraged. We spent a 30-minute phone call and she invited me over for wine. So that's what these birthday phone calls do. And really you're doing them to be encouraging, but the side benefit of them just occurs. Practical calls, anything of value. You just heard interest rates went down. I almost always reach out to my clients in April and May, and I remind them to have their AC serviced. Sometimes I can talk Varsity Pest Control. They give us a small discount, and then I'll offer that discount to my clients. There are unlimited. During the pandemic, with that time in April when nobody was leaving their house, I went to a wholesaler. I bought a ton of raw vegetables, delivered them to all my clients. There is unlimited ways for you to reach out and talk to your clients. It's just being creative. Holiday cards are a great one. I tend to send less holiday cards because I think they come in, especially like Christmas. I do send Christmas cards, but I don't think they're that effective because they get so many Christmas cards. So I think, if they're Irish and they're really into it, send them a St. Patrick's Day card. I think the cards, when cards are not coming in, are probably even more effective for you sticking out a good use of your postage. Personally, you're just calling to see how their vacation. So this is what I was talking about through Facebook. So through Facebook, you'll see somebody just got a new puppy, or they just had a baby. Call and ask them how they're doing. Are you in that stage with no sleepless nights? You can always find great reasons to call and talk to your clients. What do you say during a business call? When you call your sphere, you do mention that you're asking for business. Are they looking to buy or sell, or who do they know might be looking to buy or sell? Be specific with them to help them think clearly about who they might be able to refer. So their sports teams, from school, from church, just anywhere that's in their sphere of life. But sometimes I meet people who'll be like, I don't have any friends. I'm like, well, your son plays competitive soccer, so they have hundreds of friends in the soccer. So that you can just, really what it is, it's keeping your friends and family in mind of you as being a great agent and very resourceful agent, so that when they're playing soccer and somebody's like, gosh, I really need to sell my house, they're like, I know this great agent, here's her name and number. So that is really the goal, to get yourself so top of mind for these people that when somebody comes to them and talks about selling a house, they just naturally think of sharing your information. You may consider announcing a business call. If I'm going to call one of my friends on a business call, I find it way more comfortable to chit chat, and then get to business. It's an awkward transition for me. So I feel much better about calling them on the phone, tell them, hey, this is a business call. I'll discuss what I need to discuss, and then we'll spend the next 15 minutes chit-chatting. I find that to be much more comfortable to start it at the beginning of the call. And I never, ever call just to get a referral. I'm always calling my clients to help them or give them something of value. Like I said before, I even know of a discount on a mover. There's all kinds of things that you can give your clients. And this is where you just find a good reason to call them. And then a business script for your call. A lot of people, it's really good if you'll write these down. Towards the end of this, I'll talk to you about how to arrange your office. I think part of arranging your office is printing out your favorite scripts and taping them up on the wall. And it'll help keep you in line when you're making your phone calls. So my call would go like, hi, this is Georgie. This is a business call. Do you have a minute? Do you know anybody that's looking to buy or sell a house? Do you have any of your friends or any family that have told you they are? If so, would you give them my number, or would you give me their information? And would you mind if I gave them a call? When I get to this kind of call, I give the purpose first. Like I was saying before, it is a much easier transition for me. And I'll send you guys any of these scripts if you would like later. I'll give you cards at the end. So voicemail script. And it's very important when you leave voicemails. I've been trained a ton, and the training I got is what I'm repeating here. It was really great. Hi, this is Georgie. I'm so sorry I've missed you. I was calling to see if you just knew anybody that was looking to buy or sell a house. I know how busy you are. You can call me back if you have a chance. My phone number is 480-695-6565. Say it slowly and say it twice. I can say I get several voicemails a week that I don't call the person back because I can't clearly understand the phone number. They went really quick through it. But I understand if you can't get back to me. That's the most important line in this. But I understand if you can't get back to me, because if you leave someone a voicemail and you say, hey, will you call me back? And you don't call me back, the next time you see me, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't call her back. She's probably whatever. So that is the most important line that I've been taught by tons of salespeople, is make sure and let people know they don't need to call you back, that you will get back to them. I'll give you a call back later, Friday around noon. Thanks, have a great day. So that is a super important point in your leaving your messages. And remember I was saying you reach out to your clients 12 times a year. So that's once a month. So I do different forms of communication. I do some text messages, some emails, some phone calls, so that I also include in that emails. The purpose, so you always want to be very clear about what's the purpose of your email. What do you want to email people? I email them coupons for things. I email them really interesting articles. And I don't quote normal sources. I quote like state agencies or governing agencies, because there's a lot more bias involved. And then, in today's politically charged world, the one thing I can tell you, if you want to make money if you want to make twice as much money in real estate, stay neutral. If you want to be seriously one or the other, that's great. Sell to half of the people in the world. But right now, I'm telling you, if you talk about this, none of these people will work with you. It's really interesting. It wasn't like this 10 years ago. But at this time, more than ever, if you are a politically active person, or you're an activist for even if it's not political, I would probably create a business Facebook page that you would use. And you know what? I have a couple friends who are realtors, and they're very politically active, and it's okay with them. They're happy with only selling to people in their political party. And they clearly know they're so obnoxious on social media that anybody that's not their political party probably wouldn't do business with them. So it's okay either way. I would prefer to have clients of both parties, because that allows me to have twice as many clients. So I think it's super important, like what you post and what you email. So the importance of the subject line, I mean, you guys can relate that, I don't know, every morning I probably delete 100 emails. So just make the subject line sound useful to them. Email them as a reason to call. So social media, but it does allow you to keep your pulse on your clients' lives. I'd say 20% of the reason I call my clients or reach out to my clients, I see on Facebook. So, and make sure and comment on their Facebook post. If they get a new puppy, tell them how cute the puppy is. It's probably a really cute puppy. And so I don't know if you know much about, I don't know anything about social media, except I try, but I'm not an expert at all. But I have been taught that if your friends will post and then you comment on their post, and then they comment on your comment and you comment on their comment, not that 4 is the magical number, but the more you can get to interact, your posts rise to the top of their Facebook feed, and you rise to the top of Facebook feed in general. So it's super important to, and it's fun. I mean, everybody likes to be told how cute their puppy is or how cute their child is. But this is free. Back before we had internet, I was a realtor when we weren't using the internet in these ways, and you had to pay money for all your leads. What's so funny now is everything has changed. Now a smart realtor uses these platforms instead of spending so much to go and get leads. A reason to call or do something thoughtful, yeah, and then be careful what you post. I've already talked about that. And mailing. I know that mailing I mean, I know my kids don't mail anything ever. And tell you the truth, I'm really bad at it, but I'm trying to get better all the time because there is some class and elegance and thoughtfulness in the written word. I had loss in my life, and several of my friends mailed me cards. One of them I didn't know that well. And man, I felt very fondly towards this person the whole time. And it was just what they wrote in this card. It was nice. It was thoughtful. And so as your many ways that you reach out to them, and you don't want to call them every month. You don't want to do the same thing over and over, even if it's just social media. I do not believe if you're talking to your clients over social media every month, I still think you need to implement all of these steps because you really mail is very personal. Email is very informational. So they each get a different thing across to the clients or allow you to communicate in a different way. But who do you mail? Birthday cards are probably a great one. Sale anniversary, thank you cards or personal notes, items of value. Chuck's always taught us, he's a big person about giving them a card and throwing them a scratcher in there in the card. It's an item of value. Using what you mail as a reason to call would be you'd mail that card with a scratcher and then you'd call them and say, hey, I just mailed you a scratcher. I just mailed you a present in your card. I just wanted to make sure it didn't accidentally get into the junk mail and go straight in the trash. Just let you know, open it up. There's something fun inside. Now you spoke to them personally and you sent them something in the mail. So you're very much going to be at the top of their mind at that point. How often? It depends on how often. I would say just pepper it in with everything else that you're doing. I would say if you could mail everybody a card once a year, a couple times a year, definitely Christmas cards, and be thoughtful of your clients. So don't send Christmas cards to your Jewish clients. That's really rude and it's disrespectful. They're not Christians. You know, I know the clients of mine that are Jewish and I send them Hanukkah cards. So you got to be thoughtful when you're doing this. You know, and maybe you don't send any Christmas cards. I mean, maybe just to stay away from that one holiday to make sure you stay out of trouble in all ways. Yeah, there you go. Hey, I've heard people, they love Thanksgiving cards because you can talk about being thankful for them as their client. So Thanksgiving cards, I think, are an excellent idea because they're not going to get any other. So you'll definitely stick out that month. Now, personal visits. A lot of people stress out that the thought they would personally visit these people. But I'm telling you, you need to do it. Like I said, you just create a good reason. When I went and bought those vegetables, I think I spent about $200. And that was enough to take a gift to like 50 different people. So I'm telling you, you can be thoughtful and be wise and find reasons. So when I showed up, I remember one lady, I showed up at the basket. She's like, oh my gosh, butternut squash, it's my favorite. So it's really interesting how these personal visits can be so simple. And you know, this was during coronavirus. So everybody would tell you, don't visit your clients during coronavirus. I put the basket in front of their door. They knew I was coming. I made sure they were coming. It's perishable. I stepped back 6 feet, had a mask on. I was waving at them. So no matter what obstacle comes, you can find a way to do this. And you know what? My clients will probably remember for a really long time that I gave them vegetables when, you know, it was a really funny time in the world. What will you invite them to? One of the great things to try to get to as soon as you can, and if it's above you being able to spend the money now, partner with somebody else or join a team that already does this, client appreciations, because it really gives you an awesome reason to invite them somewhere and time to spend with them. And my fun pointer, one that I'm going to try to throw this fall that I think sounds like the funnest thing I could think of, I'm just going to try to do an outside movie viewing. Like on the side of a screen, you can rent an area in a park. You rent these projectors and screens, and it's kind of like on the side. Sometimes I've seen it on the side of a semi, and you put a movie over there, and you just let everybody sit out in the crowds and hang out and watch it. We've done them in movie theaters before, but you know, who knows? I don't know how quickly that's going to happen again. Renting out a movie theater is another awesome thing. You pick a new cute movie like Mulan that's coming out. You invite everybody. You invite their friends. Your lender will come. In fact, you can afford these because your lender and your title company will help you with them. And so you can have them bring all their children. You have the lender bring in a bunch of candy. You can bring popcorn and water, and they just have a blast. They're there for hours, and they have a great evening with their family, all because of you. So client appreciations, you can also do client appreciations out here on the patio. We have them a lot where the office has client appreciations, and you can just bring your clients to them and buy them a drink. So there's lots of ways, but you really do want to over time develop something like that, because it gives you, that's one of the reasons I can always reach out to my clients, is inviting them to client appreciation. Setting your desk up for success. So this is what I was talking about before. What I see is a lot of people like they'll set up their center of influence and get, who works here at EXP? Does anybody work for EXP? And do you guys all have databases? Okay. So it's very important. I know a lot of my friends who put people in their database, but they don't work them. So what's really important is to very slowly and methodically go through all these steps, because it is very, very important that you put all these people in there, because it's only when you put them in there that they will come out of the end bringing you business. So scripts, you can find scripts. I mean, and there's all different flavors of scripts. Like Tom Ferry's much more tough push, but those people are super, super, super successful. I'm much more like gentle in my approach. I'm not going to push and say, do you want to meet me at 1 or 4? But I have my own style of just being friendly, nice. One of my tricks that I feel has probably done more for me than anything, and I tell people, take 2 or 3 of your business cards and hand them to someone. And instead of just handing them to your friend and walking away, because when somebody does that to me, I mean, a lot of times they'll go in my car. Sometimes if I feel I'm going to use them, I'll just put them in my phone, because that's how I store my business cards. But I've had a trick for many years. It's been amazing. As I tell people, I hand them these and say, hey, you stick these in your wallet. The next time you hear somebody wants to buy or sell a house, would you have them call me? So people are very follow directions. I'm very follow directions. Somebody tells me to do something. Sometimes I'm not even thinking about it, and I'll just go ahead and do it. I have many, many friends that I can tell you years later, my business cards are in their wallet. So that is one great pointer for making sure that your information that you're giving out goes to them. Okay, so I say that because I see a lot of people sit at their desk every morning and it's not organized for success. And really, it is stressful when you get on phone calls. I mean, you have to face the fact that it is stressful calling people. In the beginning, I can tell you, it gets to be fun. Have you guys ever heard of a book called Rejection Proof? So there's a great book that I read last year called Rejection Proof, and it will help you with this very much. Because I know we all want to avoid rejection. I mean, it's just a thing that I think innately lots of people have. And so your scripts will help you to be more confident, because you'll be on the phone call trying to talk, and next thing you know, your mind is blank and you're like, okay, so what was my next sentence? If you don't have your scripts like taped up on the wall or either on a clipboard and they're really set up well for you, you could get to that position to where you're talking to these clients and trying to, that's your few moments you're going to have them on the phone. So you really have to be organized before you do all of these items. Each one of these items you want to do slowly and thoughtfully, and really make sure that you are, organizing them, doing them well, especially phone calls. And phone calls are scary, but I guarantee they get easier. And think of them, you're really just checking in. So a lot of times many, many times I call my clients, I don't ask them for business. I ask them how they're doing. I follow up on whatever I saw on Facebook. And often before I'm done with the phone call, at some point, they've come back to me and said, hey, how you doing? I see your posts on Facebook. Wow, you must be selling a lot of houses. That's probably the other pointer I can tell you is if you will put your deals on Facebook, it will make your friends and family know that you're doing real estate, especially open houses. So you don't have a listing. You're like, well, what do I have to post? Post open houses. If you get on a team, you say our, so the other people on our team can post my listings and the other people on the team's listings and say, wow, look at this great listing we have. Call us if you'd like to purchase it. So really, if you could get to the point of posting on your social media, I got much better at that this year. And I have not I've done more business in the last 3 months, but really the phone calls started last year because I got better at it about 12 months ago. And people I'd known forever, like, wow, you're selling a lot of houses. And I laughed because I really wasn't selling any more houses than I was before. However, they just finally knew I was selling houses besides just knowing me. So an information sheet. So remember we were talking before about you want to collect their birthday, their mailing address, their physical address. You will often just forget to ask those questions if you don't have an information sheet. So I have an information sheet that's 8.5 by 11 like this, and it's on a clipboard. And so I have them in my car, I have them everywhere I go, because otherwise I hate to call someone back and go, gosh, I forgot to get your date of birth, or I didn't get your mailing address. So make sure you keep these information sheets, because you're now going out into the world, and when you have them on the phone or when you're communicating with them, this is your one chance to be organized, to be on the ball, to just provide them information that makes them comfortable with you. But it is super important. I hired a coach about a year ago who's been an amazing coach. If you ever hear of the Core Coach, they're awesome coaches. But he really pushed me hard to find an email and physical address and a phone number for every single, and date of birth and home anniversary for every single person I knew in my database. I had like 400. It was a lot. So I got in the habit of, I would send text messages to people already in my database. I've been communicating with them for a year. And I'd be like, hi, this is Georgie. I'm being a good girl, cleaning up my database. Can you send me your date of birth? And at first I was like, oh, nobody cared. Everybody was like, ha, 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 here's my date of birth, mailing address, everything. So you want to collect all this information in the beginning because you want to be able to reach out to them in all these ways. In the beginning, I wasn't reaching out to them in as many different ways, like text, email, phone calls. And I just felt like I was kind of doing the same thing over and over. And so the beauty in this is you can reach out to your clients 12 times a year and communicate with them in a meaningful way 12 times a year without being annoying. Because you're not calling them 12 times a year and saying, hey, make sure and send me somebody to buy or sell a house. If you do that, I would guess by the third or fourth phone call, they might even stop answering. So make sure and realize you're communicating with them to offer them value and tell them what you do. And when you do that often, they will give your name and number out. I think they're much more inclined to give your name and number out if you're constantly offering them value and being a great communicator and being their friend than you would if you did nothing but just ask them for business. I mean, we can all think how that would feel to us. In fact, I know I have different people in my life always reaching out to me to give them business. It's not my favorite phone calls of the week. Sometimes I'm looking at the caller ID and trying to figure out, but I can tell from the people in my center of influence when I call, we're kind of friends. They often think I'm going to call and tell them something or offer them a discount or remind them to do something they need to do. And when you do that, then they're excited to talk to you and communicate with you, and they'll give you your time. Most people in the world now are not into no. Does anybody here send cards? Oh, that's awesome. I just think it's a lost world, and it's very, I think in today's world of social media, that's very quick. Now, you know what? If your clients are 20, 30, probably, I don't know, maybe they would 20, do you guys care if you get a card in the mail?
I like it.
Do you? Okay. I just tell you, if you're dealing with somebody who's 50 or 60, they love it. So, you know, you could probably totally vary this depending on who they are. But right in my office, I have a box of cards with all different reasons. You have birthday cards, you have sympathy cards, new pet card. I mean, any cute cards you can find. In fact, that's something you should shop for when you're out in the world, especially if you're finding anything on sale. Constantly be buying thank you cards and constantly be buying little cards so you have them right there. Items of value. So I have this really cute friend named Lorna Hale who buys forget-me-not packages. You know, forget me not. You don't want me to forget you as my realtor. And she sends her clients little cute packages of forget-me-nots in the mail with a really cute thank you card early every spring. It's cute. I think they've come to, and she has a lot of older clients. She lives in Mesa. And I know her clients have come to look forward to these packages of forget-me-nots. And she orders them on the internet, and they're very cheap. And whatever she orders, they have a really cute label on them that's super adorable when the people open. So just keep that in mind. Nowadays with Pinterest and all the adorable IDs you see on Facebook all the time, you should keep a running list of cute ideas. because, you know, weeks are going to go by and months are going to go by. And sometimes in life as a realtor, you're a little slower. And it's really great to work on these kind of things and get really organized. And the same thing as a new agent. Sometimes as a newer agent, you spend more time washing your dishes during the day, or taking care of physical business, or, you know, going to doctor's appointments and running around. And the one thing I should tell you is there is an awesome discipline that you should learn in being dressed at 8 o'clock in the morning, so that if somebody calls, you can show a house in 20 minutes, and trying to work the whole day until 5 o'clock. Now, it's a little complicated because we also work nights and weekends. So yes, if you're having a busy night showing, yes, you might have to run some more of your errands during the day. But I believe that is one activity that will change your center of influence more than anything, because all of the things I've talked to you about take time. So really, a lot of people think, wow, I'm not showing somebody a house, I'm not working on a listing. And so they think, okay, well, I got a few minutes, I can go wash my dishes, or I can do something fun. But there is a great discipline to spending all of your time when you're not with the client working on your center of influence. And so this will be the reason why you really need to build a great desk. And the desk can be in a closet. So this is not a large room. This is nothing. I've worked on offices in my bedroom. I've had all kinds of different offices. I don't even have a huge office. I have an office in a room off my dining room. I don't need a huge office to have everything I have. I see people with big, gorgeous offices that still don't have what's needed on a daily basis to be successful. So make sure and work hard to keep all those items of value. Headsets. I don't know, nowadays with life being so crazy and everybody being home, noise canceling headsets are super useful to keep us from being loud in front of our clients and having it loud in the background. A lot of people do automated phone calls, and it allows them to be much quicker and much faster. But time block this. I do believe time blocking your center of influence time is by far the most important thing, because I know of a ton of friends who are trying to work their center of influence, but I would guess total they might spend a couple hours a week on it. And then I think you have to be careful not to spend a couple hours a week on your center of influence and think that you've done a good job. You should really be spending several hours a day. In fact, what your center of influence is to you over time is it's your to-do list every morning. So you will wake up and see everybody's birthday that's in your center of influence. So like at EXP, when you put your, and all the different, what do you call them? Yeah, all the different programs that you use to keep track of your clients, they will either email you or text you and let you know what somebody's birthday in advance. EXP sends out really fun colloquial message, happy birthday, and I like that because it initially reaches out to them right away. And if, God forbid, I don't do my job right, these people have already heard from me with a funny little text message early in the morning that's very fun and friendly. Now, my job is to follow that up with a personal phone call. I just think this is the one thing you should really carve out on your schedule. What I did in the beginning, before I was even great at my center of influence, was I just put everybody's birthday in my phone and just put it reoccurring every year, because I want to be informed about people's birthdays 3 times as opposed to missing them and not going by. So you have to wait a whole nother year to have that one perfect reason to call them that's all about them. But time blocking really is super, super important in changing everything for you. And then how to add people to your list. So one of the hard things is a lot of people start a database and they fill it in once and then they stop and they just keep working that same database. Now your database needs to be constantly building and constantly weeding out. So if you have someone on your A list and they haven't responded to your last 5, 10, or 15 communications. Now, I know you laugh because I used to be a big person to where if somebody ignored me once or twice, I'm good. You know, they don't want me and that's okay. I'll go to the next guy. Well, I was trained when I used to spend a lot of money on Zillow leads 10 times. So you reach out to everybody that you're ever trying to communicate with 10 times before you give up on them. And that is super, super important. I used to think, oh my gosh, they've got another agent, or they're just not interested, or I'm annoying you. Those are all things that come out of our head. Those are not reality. The reality is their dog died, they have a huge project at work with a ton of pressure, or they're just not in the mood. I'm great with my clients ignoring me 10 times when they're not in the mood. If on the 11th time when they are in the mood, they reach out to me to buy or sell. So my first thing would be take people out of your database very slowly. However, do take them out. I have people who I haven't communicated with in years. I haven't gotten a great communication with. You need to take them out because you need to keep a database to us. I'll go towards the end about really big databases, but we are trying to get 400 or 500 people that you consider to be a close relationship. And if you do that, I'll get to the figures later. If you want to build your database up to 400 or 500 people that you are actively working. Now I have a lot more than that in leads and in people that I don't have a great relationship, because what I've taught you on Center of Influence today is how you deal with your center of influence. However, you're still reaching out to people that aren't in your center of influence because you're trying to grow your business as well. So as deals close, you always add them to your database. You'll want to move people from your B to your A. You'll see that you put people in your B because they're telling you, yeah, I would consider using you, but I have this agent who's really great, but they're communicating with you all the time. And then I have people tell me, gosh, my agent retired. It looks like it's your lucky week. Yes, it is. So then you'd move them up into your 8. Oops. And ask your clients for referrals while you're in the middle of your transaction. Because when I'm in the middle of a transaction with my clients, they're calling me every day, they're texting me every day. We definitely are on a every single day communication. Did the appraisal come in? What'd you hear about the bins? Are we talking all the time? And if you're doing your job well, they're very, very happy with you. They think you're working hard. That is the time to broach the subject of a referral. Just be like, hey, I really loved working with you. I'm going to keep in touch with you after we close. So are you happy with me? Would you consider referring me to a friend? Well, of course. I mean, unless you have not done your job well, but of course they're going to be so excited. They're buying or selling a house. Things are going great for them. That's the time they'll be like, of course I would refer you to everybody I know. So I think that is the most comfortable time to ask them the first time. The 10% rule. All right, statistically, oops, let me go back. So this is what I started to say earlier. So statistically, if you have 400 people in your database and you are working your database, you will sell 40 houses a year. I mean, that's a pretty decent income. We're talking about you still haven't prospected yet. Without doing open houses, without going to get new clients, your database will send you 40 deals a year. I remember when Angela first told me that, I was like, yeah. It sent me 40 deals last year. So just to let you know, when you do this and work it, yesterday I got a call from a friend of mine I sold his house and said, hey, my brother wants to buy or sell a house. Can you meet with him? And I went and had coffee yesterday. So, we tried to have coffee. We had to go back to a taco place because Starbucks were closed. But you know what? It was somebody from my sphere of influence that I've reached out to for many years. And his brother said, hey, I want to buy a house. And he's like, oh my gosh, call Georgie. So you will get 10%. It's just, so it's 100% dependent on, I think 40 deals a year is close to gross of about $200,000. So, I mean, if you can get 400 people in your database and work them this way, you would like sometimes you hear things like the one person at the top is going to do something great, but everybody else has a way different average. I am telling you, 10% is the average. Some people get a lot more than that, but you will get 10%. It sounds too good to be true, but you will get that. So this is why you want to weed people out that aren't, especially over years, because you want active people in there referring you. How much of my business should come from my center of influence? So this is really funny because in the beginning, I always thought my goal in life was for all my business to come from center of influence. Well, now I feel like I'm not being such a great realtor because all my business is coming from my center of influence. Not all of it, but way too high of a percentage. So right now as an agent, I'm working on this part, on growing the part outside of my center of influence. So while you're growing your business, 35 to 40% of your business should come from your center of influence. If not, so that means if you have 100 deals, 35 to 40 of them should come from your center of influence. That means the rest of your closing should come from your other prospecting. So if you're getting all of your business from your center of influence, you need to do more prospecting. If you're getting all your deals from your prospecting, you need to work your center of influence better. If you have less than 35% of your center of influence, then you probably aren't working it well. So I do meet people who have a database and they might send them a Christmas card or they send newsletters. So I do talk to agents who say instead of doing all these different items, they send their client a monthly newsletter. I don't open a ton of newsletters. So I don't know if you guys open a ton of newsletters. So be careful. Don't have a center of influence sending them a monthly newsletter thinking you're communicating with them every month. So keep this in mind. You should be hearing from them if it counts as a communication. Not always. So you're sending them things, but these text messages should be responded to, these phone calls should be responded to, these emails should be responded to, and they won't be. They won't all be. You'll definitely send a ton of communications that have nothing come back to you. However, you just want to be careful to constantly keep sending them out. So what's funny is it says, remember, okay, so if you have less than 35% of your center of influence, then you probably aren't working it well. So that's where a lot of people get a center of influence, but yes, $200,000 a year is great, but if that's where you're at as an agent, often your goal is trying to get up to 3 or trying to get up to 4. So that is going to come with, and this is slow growth. You can see this is a lot of work. I highly suggest, like as a step 1, my coach this year had me make 2 lists, and he called them VIPs, like very important people. And it just helped me use this list and to really spark something different in my mind about VIPs. Who are people that I thought were important that might be able to send me business that I didn't have a close relationship with right now. And I got a brilliant idea from my coach this year, and it was to reach out to CPAs and tax consultants. And, they have, and attorneys, because they have so many clients every month that come in for all sorts of different reasons. And you want to make sure that you are reaching out to these people. In general, there's often a lot of realtors that want to buy or sell houses, but they don't do a lot of the hard work that it takes to make it happen. Like pulling comps is a lot of work, sending DMAs to people is a lot of work, but he gave me the greatest idea of reaching out to every tax attorney and CPA and asking them, telling them, I would be willing to provide you a free CMA for any client at any time. Somebody passes away, they're just considering selling, even say, I don't expect any business from this. I'm not asking you for business. I am telling you, I will provide a service for you right now to where you can provide every single one of your clients a professional CMA that lets them know what their house is worth. Because they are making decisions about buying and selling. People are dying and family members are trying to decide, do we want to keep it and rent it? Do we want to sell it? Depends on what it's worth compared to what it can rent for. I do believe this year that was probably one of the best pointers I ever received, was the fact is true. So yesterday or day before, on my LinkedIn, I had a CPA friend me, and I accepted. And I don't know if you guys are on LinkedIn, but when you're on LinkedIn, and a ton of times now you accept friend requests, you immediately get a request from them asking something of you. And so she messaged me and so I accepted her as a friend, and I messaged her back and said, I'm an agent that loves to supply CMAs to attorneys and CPAs that need them. if you have a few moments to talk, call me. Here's my phone number. I would love to talk to you about providing this service to you as a free service to your clients. So really, the funny thing is there are unlimited ways to go after people in your center of influence and to go after people in general. Does everybody have a LinkedIn page? So I would just really right now recommend that be something that you guys all work on and get cleaned up. Get up and running. Everybody's looking at them. I mean, I don't know when LinkedIn became the greatest thing, but this morning I accepted 7 friend requests. I mean, it is a hopping place and it's a great history. Like, Instagram comes and goes so quickly. It's a great place. You should be posting all of your open houses. You should be buying and selling. It is definitely something that people are going to right now to see how professional you are, to see if, you can give someone a good few-minute presentation, but nowadays, when you leave, they're jumping on social media to check you out. So, it was funny, I showed up at a client's house a few months ago, and his screen was like this, and my Facebook page was on his screen. He's like, oh, sorry. He's like, I just check out somebody before they come in my house. But I thought it was funny, and it just reminds you, you know what? They are looking you up. So, and Facebook isn't really a place to make you look professional. I mean, there's so much you can post about houses you bought and houses you've sold, but on LinkedIn, there's a ton of amazing articles that come up all the time, and they're about interest rates. They're about be careful about wire fraud. There's a ton of things, and a lot of people are just wanting to obtain knowledge. There's a ton of people that just want to be smarter, and they just want to do everything better. And so they're learning all the time, but they also want to work with someone that they feel is learning all the time. And there's a lot of agents who think they're great agents, or they are great agents, but they don't work so hard to let their clients know what they're doing. I know a ton of agents who are rocking it. I don't think a ton of their friends know. I mean, they might know they live in a nice house, they know they're an agent and they're successful, but they don't see it go through their life. As soon as I changed my social media last year, everything went way up for me. As soon as I started getting much better about posting sold. And so you guys, and I'm not a Facebook girl, I don't really like it, just to let you know, I do it for business. Only reason I'm on Facebook is because I like it as a business tool. There is no part of me that enjoys Facebook like a ton of the world does. But you do want to make sure and post things of value. So the same thing with LinkedIn and Facebook, you want it to be items of value, like every time you communicate with them. I put a tiny bit of fun of silly because I'm not just trying to look like, I'm just a business person, because like I said, remember, I don't like it, so I don't put a ton of stuff up there. So if you do business, the one thing I've been taught, you have to pepper 1 or 2 things between each business post. So something encouraging, really something encouraging and motivational posts, I think, are one of the most useful things. First thing, everybody in the world needs some positive motivation right now. Everybody needs some encouragement. So really, I think to help yourself in business, and your center of influence is going to see this about you. So start being encouraging, start being motivating. So for me, I am constantly looking for posts or articles that I find are interesting or intelligent. And like I said, I quote the federal government or state government. I am almost always trying to go to Fannie, Freddie, or HUD. I don't try to post a ton of what somebody else is saying because it may or not be true, unfortunately, in today's world. So the same thing, remember, your center of influence is going to judge how accurate they think you are. And if you're just constantly posting and half of them are true and half of them aren't true, remember, this entire system was created for you to build relationships. I laugh. I've always been kind of a social butterfly, but since I started doing this, what's funny, in a way, it gets kind of exhausting because you end up having so many friends, which is awesome. I mean, as a realtor and as a person, it's fun to have a lot of friends, but it is a lot of work to keep up with all this. So one thing I can say is I think each person should probably spend a very minimum of 2 hours a day on your center of influence. And that's a minimum. That's saying you're showing houses or you're taking out buyers. If you're not, wake up in the morning, turn on your center of influence, go through and make sure you have notifications. In fact, you should set up your center of influence so it automatically tells you about every birthday about 5 days before the birthday, in case you're deciding to send a card, maybe again the very morning of the birthday. I think it's great to make my birthday calls in the morning, and you'll be shocked, because I remember in the beginning when I first started making my birthday calls, I was a little nervous, like, what would you say? And what's funny is I have some high-end men that have used me once. I know they own multiple companies out in California. They've only bought one thing from me. And what's so funny is they think of me as their friend, and I think of them as my friend now. You know, I know yesterday I made a comment on this one guy's dog. He had this scruffy little dog that he bought this cute little bench for. What's the chances not doing this, that 6 years after I sold a man one house, him and I would be in a friendly relationship? So I feel confident this guy lives in California. If one of his buddies is going to buy or sell a house, he would call me, or he would at least send them. They may not use me, but he will send them to me. So that is why this is so important in building. So do you guys have any questions? I mean, I've been doing this a long time. Is there any questions you have about center of influence?
When you think about your center of influence and you say you have your A and your B teams, are those like local, or like when you have friends that move, do you add them to a C team, or do you keep them on the A team?
I keep my A's on my A team that are referring me deals, because like I have a couple who moved to Pennsylvania, and I keep them on my A because I mean they are in HR. Not only I love them and they're awesome, but they are definitely people that will send me business from back east. So yes, I think what's smart, I would always keep them in there, because they'll send you business from where they're at. So what a whole second layer of learning. I'm so glad you asked that question. A whole second layer of learning is you guys need to start friending people from out of state. You want tons of people in your center of influence, in your friend group, that live out of state, because they all have people that are moving to Arizona. I mean, I don't know what happened. I guess it's good weather and great employment and cheap housing, but everybody in the world is moving to Arizona from everywhere. So I really think, in fact, I just started that. I was talking to Chuck and Angela, and they were giving us some pointers. And one of the pointers was to really be thoughtful of all of your friends or family out of state and pulling them into your center of influence and starting to communicate with them. And, you know, if you're with EXP, even reach out to them. Do they have friends or family that are agents that aren't happy where they are? Because we can recruit across the entire United States of America. So you're trying to constantly find people that will help refer you. So yeah, absolutely from out of state. But you can tell, like some people aren't really talkative and they're not social butterflies, and maybe, you know, after a few years, you just get the feeling that they're never really going to be the kind. So you could put them down to like a B and still communicate with them, but not have it the same. Any other thoughts? Because that was a good point that I was going to miss there. So. But it is super important now to go after people that are in your, to try to obtain business within your state, but try to obtain people referring you from out of state, especially if you can know people in New York, New Jersey, Chicago, Iowa, Minneapolis, and California. I can't tell you how many people I have buying right now from these states. I mean, they are moving here in droves. So really, the bulk of my business this year has been people coming in from out of state buying or selling houses. And it's really important when you buy or sell a house, like the guy that called me yesterday. I sold a house for Mike, really, really great guy. But during the process, in fact, this was a great lesson I learned yesterday. During the process, I met his brother, Bill, really nice guy. You know what? I never put Bill in my database, and I really didn't think about it till yesterday. Bill's the one that called me. And Bill was talking to his brother Mike and is talking about Mike and saying, gosh, I really want to buy a house. He's like, oh, you need to call Georgie. And Bill's like, oh, yeah, that's the girl I met when you were selling your house. You know what? I learned a lesson yesterday. I need to have Bills in my center of influence. So I met Bill. We had a really friendly, great relationship when I sold his brother's house. Never, ever dawned on me on trying to put the people whose houses, if I have a friendly, fun relationship with either one of their friends or someone in their family, why wouldn't we add them to our database and get their information? So it probably would have been very comfortable for me to be having this great relationship with Mike. His brother was all impressed because he had this really complicated house to sell, and we bought a house, and it occurred on one day, and it was very smooth and easy. And the brother's kind of a high anxiety guy, and he'd stressed for like months how this was going to be the worst day of his life, and it ended up and all these tragedies were going to happen, and it all went really well. So I remember his brother being there when we came back to move into his house and gave him the keys. That would have been the perfect time for me to be like, hey, Bill, you know what? You're such an awesome guy. We've had a great time. Do you mind if I put you in my database? I know there's no way he would have said no. So now I lucked out because all these years later, he came back to me. But he didn't come back to me because I was a good girl. Well, I guess a little bit good girl because I've been talking to his brother, Mike. But that is where you just want to be constantly thinking of who I can add. And what's funny, now that you say this, Mike is down in my B's because I sold him his house many years ago, and he did move away. But I'm very conscious about commenting on his Facebook stuff because I want to stay in touch with him, and I don't see him anymore. We don't go to the same church anymore. In fact, so that is a great thought. But yes, I would say even people from out of state, you probably want to keep in touch as much or more than people in the state. And then any other thoughts you guys have about where to get people? Or how to put them in there. Does it seem uncomfortable to you? Do you guys feel comfortable asking for all this information? I used to feel a little uncomfortable asking for date of birth and something. You know what? Nobody cares. If they think you're going to send them something for your birthday, I would have assumed out of all the people I would have asked for the date of birth, I'd have had one person be funny about it. Not even one. They all think they're going to get something from me or they're going to get encouraged. So they're like, they're sending it to me with exclamation marks and smiley faces when they're responding to my text. And I did, like I said, when I had to go back and clean up, I found text message just to be the least invasive way to ask them what I needed, because I didn't call them in the middle of whatever they were doing. I texted them the question and let them send it back to me when it was their time. And I believe I got 100% response rate from me filling in my center of influence. So it is super important that you constantly be looking for people to add, because I went in the beginning, I added a ton of people to my center of influence. And then I would add clients as they would close. But I spent, even with the success I'm having now, I feel like God's just blessed me or it's great luck. But with having all this, I went about 4 years with not adding anybody to my database except people that were buying and selling houses. And then I had another coach that just really pushed me to constantly think about this. And really, when you think about it, I'll even read a few more. This is 175 different categories of people. Like baseball teams for your kids, your bookkeeper, your CPA, the person who does your hair. I'd say firemen. I don't know how many firemen I would know long enough to get there, unless they were friends of mine. Not if they come to your house. But there's just so many great people, like my kids' volleyball team. It's funny, my daughter was in club volleyball for a year and a half before I put anybody in my center of influence. And I just wasn't thinking. I was like, well, this is volleyball and this is work. But really make sure that there is no world that you keep separate. I go to church. I go to the same church like 20 years. And I remember in the beginning thinking, well, I don't want to like troll the people at church for business. That's like unchristian of me, But, okay, so I'll give you a different thought. Everybody from church is going to buy or sell a house, that wants to buy or sell a house. I don't talk anybody into buying or sell a house, but don't you want all your friends to have great representation? As soon as I started thinking of it that way, it changed everything for me, because I thought, I've seen people from church or friends of mine have worked with a really bad realtor, and I've gotten the crying phone calls. I've gotten them super upset. In fact, we had one of my clients that came to me probably 3 years ago, and he should have been in my center of influence. Now, I've known him for years. He was not in my center of influence, and he went to some radio show and found an agent. He had worked with this agent for almost a year and had a horrible experience. I'm not even going to go into it, but it cost him like $4,000 or $5,000, some of the things that this agent did. And so after all this, then he calls me and says, can you help me? So at that point, I actually ended up listing, this other agent had listed the house for a year and wasn't able to sell it. And we listed the house for the same price and sold it in 30 days. So I don't exactly know what the difference was, but that was a lesson to me, because that was a guy from church, And I had thought, I don't really want to troll everybody from church for business, which I don't troll people from church. Typically, they have to come to me and I'm their friend before I would ever put them in there. But it was a tragic story he told. I mean, literally, he had to go to the hospital a couple times. I mean, he doesn't have great health, and the stress that this event with another agent caused him put him in the hospital a couple times. I know it sounds kind of terrible. He even had to have part of his foot amputated because he was so stressed out by all of the stuff that had gone on. And it was a big, long story. And then I came in and helped him. And there was a part of me that thought, gosh, if I'd have put that guy in my center of influence 5 years ago and managed my database, the way I am now, that maybe he would have gotten to me before he got to this other guy. So just remember, when that flip switched years after I started a database, remember, you're a nice human being. You're probably smart. You're probably great at what you do. You probably care way more than the average human or even the average realtor. So by bringing people into your center of influence and staying at the top of their mind, you're helping them. That changed everything for me. When it wasn't all selfish and I didn't just have a database because I was trying to make more money, but I was having a database because at this point, I think I'm an amazing realtor. I think I'm a great listing agent. I think I'm a great buyer's agent. And so I want my friends and family to have a really, really great agent. I don't want them to have a mediocre agent. So after you process that, it lets you put a ton more people in your database, and it really takes away the guilt factor. Then there's family. Because people are always conflicted about how do they deal with family and their center of influence. Same thing, they don't want to be a pest. They don't want to be annoying. They don't want their family or friends to not use them. I know a ton of agents, including me in the beginning, who did not put my family in my center of influence. At this point now, I put the family in my center of influence that have either done business with me or like they're professionals, they would like to do business. I mean, I don't put like grandmas in there when, it would stress them out for me talking to them about real estate. And you want to put people that have no desire to buy or sell, or even sometimes family members, if they wouldn't refer me anyway. I mean, people are just different. You have to be, you can be thoughtful because you don't want to spend so much time on somebody that is never going to send you money. Send you business, but over time, you want your family well taken care of as well. My daughter has a really big family on her dad's side, and she had never felt great about reaching out to her family for business. And you know what? A couple people had deals that really, really didn't go great. And then she sold a couple people houses where it went amazing. I mean, they sold for top dollar, they bought a gorgeous place, and same thing. It helped her and her family because her dad's family wasn't really into being into her database. They were like, you just want to sell me a house. But after it went well for a couple of them, now they're all into it. So really you will see. Also, I think the more you do this, the more comfortable you become with pulling people into your database and reaching out. But I do have to say, remember how I said you should reach out to them 12 times a year? You should put that on a clipboard. You need to organize that somehow. I do it in my KB Core. So if you have a great database, you can track all this in there. There's all different ways to do it, but you really need to track because 12 times a year is a lot. It is a lot. And you got to think, if you have 400 people, you have to be organized about this. So I know I got a new coach this year, and he gave us a philosophy for following up on your database. So you can take the alphabet and divide it by the days of the weeks. And you can just decide to call all your A's, then call all your B's, then call all your C's. There's all different ways. Now, things like email communications, when you're letting them know about amazing interest rates or a huge change in the industry that would make a difference to them. I heard a cool fact the other day that I keep telling people in my center of influence. You can go look it up on Cromford Report. And I think it's probably the most useful piece of information I found to share with my center of influence in the last couple weeks. And I don't have my notes, so I hope I quote it correctly. But in the last 10 years, so you can go back to Cromford Report and check this out. They're the source of the source. If you ever quote anybody in real estate, quote the Cromford Report. In the last 10 years, our housing has increased by 17%. People moving into the valley has increased by 29%. Because it really didn't make sense to me why we're so busy and we're so slammed and we have such a shortage of listings when, you know, we have all the things going on, you know, coronavirus is going on, there's all kinds of complications. And in other parts of the country, they aren't as busy as we are here in Arizona. And it's just because everybody's moving into Arizona. And so we have our population has increased by 29% and our housing has increased by 17%. So you see, we're 12% short. So for us, on the bright side, that's a great thing. And I also want to encourage you. So I hear a lot of people talking doomsday stuff right now, like, you better hurry and sell real estate for the next few months because then it's going to be this crazy winter after that. I'm telling you, don't believe them. I have heard that the entire time I've been in real estate. I started out as an appraiser 26 years ago. So I've been an appraiser. I own an appraisal company. And then about 10 years ago, I started buying and selling houses. I have been told that the market's going to crash, the world's going to crash. I've been warned about every bad thing in the world that's going to happen. I've been told they won't need appraisals anymore. They won't need real estate agents anymore. Just don't waste your time listening to any of that or even buying into any of that. None of it's true. And Arizona's, like I said, we have a very unique position. We have weather and circumstances and employment and cheap housing that makes everybody want to move in. We don't have a ton of people leaving Arizona because they just think of going back to the winters. And the guy I was talking to yesterday, Bill, he would really love to go back east, but he just can't bring himself to live there in that cold. So he's going to stay here. So let's see, what other, yes?
Question. When you met with Bill yesterday, what
Yes.
is kind of like the etiquette if you were to get coffee or lunch? Like, do you normally pay because he's going to be your client or split the bill or like what?
You know what?
What's your?
It depends.
Okay.
So I've had times where as an agent, I'm like squeaking by. I mean, believe me, you know, you'll have times where I had one time where I had a bunch of complications. I didn't have closing for like 4 months. So, I mean, there are times in life where I just don't pay attention. I'll just walk up the counter, grab my cup of coffee and let them be behind me. You know what? I used a business card, so I deduct it all. So at this point, most every time I meet somebody, I pay for coffee. I don't always pay for lunch, but I often pay for lunch. But especially these are people that have bought and sold houses with me or different things. But it gets really tough. So this is what's important is to make money in real estate. Even 2 years ago, you had to spend a lot more money than you do today. So I probably spend $2,000 a month in real estate. I used to spend $2,000 a month in real estate trying to get more business. I would just spend it on all kinds of different things. I spent money on Zillow leads. I spent money on lots of different things. I spent money taking people to coffee and lunch all the time. And I ended up coming to the conclusion that was the best spent money I spent. You know, with Zillow, I'm not doing Zillow leads anymore. And really, there is so much more money in spending that $2 cup of coffee and then making that as the money you're putting into your center of influence. So it is something, especially for people that budget tightly, to be thoughtful about leaving yourself. In fact, they tell you in the beginning, I don't think anybody ever does this, but in the beginning, you should take 50% of what you make and put it back into your business. I truly believe that's an amazing thing. The difference is most people are trying to eat at the same time, so that can get complicated at the same time. But it is super important to put money into your business. My daughter teases me, and she's like, Mom, you'll just spend money so quickly. But I make a lot more than she makes. So it's the adage, the more you spend, the more you make is really true. However, most realtors have wasted a ton of money. I'll give you guys cards. If you're thinking about spending money on something, call me just for fun. You guys want to call me about any question, anytime. I've been an appraiser 26 years. Take my card. Call me anytime about anything. But whenever you're going to spend money on, call me because most likely I've already spent money on it, and I can tell you why it's maybe not a great idea.
I think that's where I am right now is where I'm trying to determine where the best place is to spend my money on marketing because.
And what are you pulling it out of? Or what are you thinking of pulling money out of?
Right now I'm pulling it.
What's that?
Actually, right now I'm just going further in debt.
Mm-hmm. No, I meant what were you thinking of stop spending money on?
I haven't spent money on anything yet. I'm brand new.
Mm.
I am a month in.
Awesome!
I have my first listing in 2 days. So
So do you you want to hear my advice, like what to spend your money on as a brand new agent?
Yes. Please.
Yeah, let me think 1 second. I would spend it on this only. You would only spend it on your center of influence only. So
Yeah.
you'd buy signs and what you need for that. But I would save all your marketing money and only spend it on a cup of coffee here or there.
See, and that's what
Send it on a thank you card.
Coffee or whatever.
So that's why this is so brilliant. In the old days, realtors used to spend like I know agents that spend $5,000 a month on marketing. So agents used to spend a ton of money on everything. I mean, mailing flyers. I don't mail any flyers. What I do is I print letters and I flyer doors, even in coronavirus. So door knocking, nobody wants you knocking on their door right now. However, flyering neighborhoods is amazing. You guys want listings? My number one point to you, outside of what we're teaching here, is to create a flyer and talk to them about how great you are at selling a house and put flyers. People are thinking about buying or selling right now. There are people in every subdivision, probably 2 or 3 people in every single subdivision right now, seriously considering selling. And they just haven't done it yet, or they don't know who to call. So if I was going to spend money on any one thing, it would just be on black and white copies. And I'd make a very thoughtful
I
letter.
think they're gonna set an open house this weekend, so,
Do you want my cool pointer then for that?
yeah.
And that's for your center of influence. So for your open house, so hold your open house. I got a listing out of this last year. So I held an open house and I had like 5 people who said they were looking to buy, but they weren't looking to buy what I was selling. And I kept all their information and I sent a letter to everybody in the neighborhood and said, wow, I did an open house this weekend. I have 4 buyers. I have John, who's looking for a house with a pool. I have Sally, who's looking for a 2-story, or I have Kathy that really is looking for a 1-story. If you have any desire to sell your house, please call me because I have a buyer. You wouldn't even have to go in MLS. You wouldn't even have to show your house like normal. Probably even help you, spend less money on repair, whatever you want to say in there. And I did that and I got the house next door as a listing. So do an open house and then flyer that neighborhood telling them you have buyers. If you are interested in buying or sell, in fact, I often will put like a first name because it's more personal. I mean, they're getting, in fact, I don't know if you guys were receiving a lot of mail, but last year I was getting, I don't know what, a letter every 3rd or 4th day asking if I wanted to sell my house. I don't know about you guys. How many of those letters are you guys getting right now? Because I'm not getting them. I don't know if you guys are.
Flyers on my door, but then I use that in my social media and ask all my friends and family what they think of it, if they would keep it or not. What they thought of the flyers, like what were their ideas on it, like, and then I use that as my own marketing, like this is not good, this is not good, or certain things to look for.
So what she just said was brilliant. So remember, you're trying to communicate with other people and get them to interact. So she asked a question. She posted something that came on the mail and I don't know what on your door. And so what did you say to them when you posted it?
So basically I was like, hey, what are your, can you please share your thoughts on this marketing tool? I'm in the process of marketing my own business and I just would like people's opinions. If they would use this for a realtor or if they wouldn't. Based on what
So doing that all day, every day. So I have a social media girl that tells me what to do. That's what she says I should be doing every day. Posting and asking a question. And then that is a great idea because then she's hearing from people, oh, that looks stupid. Oh, that looks great. Oh, do it this way and do it that way. But way better than that, she can come up with her own ideas. She can go to a title company and get ideas. In fact, KV Core has like the best. Have you gone into KV Core for the printed materials? They rock. So I am so bad. I would pay people to make flyers for me. It's just not my thing at all. And now all of a
It does get
sudden,
expensive though, like when you're doing these other open houses, I've done like 3 in a week, and when I go to like Office Max or whatever and then print it out, I can have Brittany a title.
I can say you got to get your own printer at some point.
But
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, God, it's like $20 for like.
I highly suggest buying a good printer for everybody. So I can tell you, that's a very smart thing. You're thinking about what do you spend money on as an agent? So I don't know if this is true, but it was what I was taught. When you look on like a HP and then there's those 4 numbers afterwards, the higher that first number is, the better it is and the more quality it is. And we all know they go up in price. But what I didn't know is a very expensive printer, the toner lasts forever. You buy these cartridges, they last a really long time. It was a conspiracy created by the printing companies, just to let you know. You go buy that cheap $100 printer, they're gonna get $100 a month out of you in toner. So you gotta Google this before you buy one. But I think the one thing, like if you get a tax return or you have a closing, buy a great printer. And then I buy 80-pound gloss paper. It's kind of expensive, like $7 a ream, but I can buy it on Amazon. And I can print KV Core flyers on that paper, and they look like the $2 flyers from the store. And you know, all you paid for your own toner. That actually is probably the most important thing as a realtor for you to spend money on, is the ability to print. Because otherwise you are, and the same thing, being able to scan an email from home. So you're not paying $10 when you scan this or $10 when you scan that. That is an awesome cost-cutting measure. That's really great. But I loved her idea, posting things. So you see how casually your communication to your center of influence. And if she has someone that's constantly communicating back on her posts, it's probably somebody maybe she should reach out to and see if they'd be willing to be an A in her database. So it's funny how now social media and center of influence have become so combined together. But
So easy. I mean, if you're using it and comfortable with it and natural with it, it is.
easy. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that's it. If you have any questions, otherwise, please take a card. Please call me anytime. Especially a new agent, call me anytime. I love to help women. I'd help men too. But I had a really bad situation years ago at a work where we worked with a guy who was not great to all the women there. And I vowed at that point I was going to empower women for the rest of my life. So you guys take my card. You guys have a lot of decisions to make. I won't always be able to answer. I'll talk to you while I'm driving. I'll get back to you, because how you spend your money right now is one of the things that will make a big difference for you, especially in the beginning. Hey, let me stop this real